Hey there everyone, this is Dicebag, and this time I want to take a chance to talk about some of the design and the world building that goes into Crytures, the little Pokemon style tabletop role-playing game I'm designing here. Now specifically I want to talk about legendary creatures this time. So what exactly do I mean by that? What needs to be said about them? Well, first of all, I don't want it to just be a carbon copy of what Pokemon is doing. That's something I'm trying to avoid as much as possible. So, I don't really want to just rip what they've done. Now, with Pokemon, what you tend to have when you get legendaries is that they're kind of based around a specific concept. You've got, the Pokemon of space, the Pokemon of time, the Pokemon of creation, you got the Earth Pokemon, the Water Pokemon, the Sky Pokemon, stuff like that. They're very generalized concepts, and so that kind of limits how much you can do with it. And that's something I'm trying to work out of Crytures. So what I started thinking was that maybe instead of having the creatures, the legendary creatures specifically, be based around kind of nebulous concepts like that were kind of just universal, that maybe they should be specific. Like with Pokemon, even though they have these universal concepts that they represent, they're always in specific places in the world, in the specific regions. So maybe I should play that up. And that's when I started thinking, well, maybe if we're going to do that, we could have it play specifically into the region. And maybe the legendary creatures themselves are like expressions of the land, almost kind of like the idea of a Shinto god, where it's basically the god of the land, or the god of the mountain, or the god of the forest, things like that. Very kind of nature worshipy, but just very low level. And so that's kind of where I started going from. I started to think then, what kind of consequences would that mean for the game world if, say, there is a legendary of a forest, and one of the characters, the player characters, or somebody else in the world, anybody really, one of the conjurers is able to bind that creature and control it. Well, what does that mean for the land that it represented? Now, you'd kind of make the assumption that the conjurer then would own that land, wouldn't you? That would be kind of a reasonable assumption. If you own the physical manifestation of that piece of land, then it would just kind of figure that you would have control over the land itself. So that kind of got me thinking, what if the nobility in this world are not born in or just conquering land, but rather they are powerful conjurers who have managed to bind legendary creatures and therefore have won the right to rule over that land. It kind of combines the whole concept of the divine right of kings or the mandate of heaven, but brings it down to a lower, more down-to-earth kind of position, rather than like a universal god giving you this authority. It's granted to you on account that you own the god of this land, basically. So that's an interesting little tidbit I thought I'd work into the game on a larger scale, the idea that the noble class are all conjurers that have acquired these legendary creatures. There's a lot more to go on in that kind of thought process. Like, what would diplomacy look like between conjurers with powerful creatures? I figure there'll probably be a lot of formalized dueling between the nobles to vie for power and status. And that kind of opens up a lot of little gameplay elements that I can work in that aren't just... they don't just have to do with going out and exploring and adventuring and, you know, doing the usual RPG thing. You can get into intrigue and dealing with other nations and diplomacy, and I think that'll be a very good place to bring the game in general.